Hey, good morning. Welcome in and welcome back, everybody. It is Laura here from Tenacious Taurus Tarot and Astro Insights. And we're going to dig deep into the astrological aspects culminating today, how it connects to the Twin Flame Collective. And then we are going to go deeper into these energies with some oracle and some tarot messages. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button down below so we can be YouTube friends, YouTube family. But let's talk about these energies because I do feel they need to be broken down separately. So the first culminating transit happening today is between Venus forming a trine to Chiron. So this is the first culminating trine out of a series of 3. And so everything usually happens in a trinity sequence for the divine feminine on this journey. And this didn't surprise me. And so although we have the first sequence of these culminating transits happening today, there is going to be a second trine between Venus and Chiron, and Chiron will still be retrograde during the second trine. This will be on December the 18th. And so these are between fire signs. What is interesting, the third culmination of this trine, of this portal energy of healing, is going to be between Virgo and Taurus at 0 degrees. And so we are completing a massive 7-year cycle connected to the wounded healer in Chiron, connected to Chiron and Aries. And we are in preparation for Chiron switching signs going into Taurus next year. This is significant for me because my personal natal Chiron is in Taurus. And so this trifold sequence, I feel, is really opening up a deep portal of healing for the feminine. We also have Mars in Libra in a culminating opposition to Chiron and Aries today. And so this is interesting because trines create harmonious flows of energy. I do believe it opens up a portal of healing energy. And then on the flip side, we have the Mars energy in Libra, which is in its fall. Mars does not like to be in Libra. It is considered the fall in opposition to Chiron and Aries, the masculine energy. And so this is a standalone transit between Mars in opposition to Chiron. And I do feel this is deeply affecting the masculine collective. What I found interesting, although these are both culminating at 26 degrees 12, they are not culminating at exactly the same time. But both Venus and Mars at the culmination of both of these transits are going to be both sitting in the 12th house. And so there is a burying of past karma here for both the masculine and the feminine in the collective. And really what I thought would be best for all of us today is to break down each of these transits separately. Normally, I would kind of talk about this all together as a combined energy, but I do feel these need to be talked about separately, standalone-ish, because it's almost like a separation energy. I feel the separation of the masculine and the feminine, and I do feel the masculine is standing alone. It feels like that standalone energy where he feels the separation from the feminine as the feminine kind of exhibits this energy of temperance and justice, where the masculine is in this energy of a Page of Wands. And so there's a lot of, I want to say, inner child wounds being triggered and being activated for the divine masculine collective. And they do have an opportunity to take the high road. They do have an opportunity with the archetypes of the world and the Two of Wands at play for the masculine to move forward, to choose another cycle, to stop the negative repetition of these relationship patterns, of these karmic cycles and these karmic loops. And the feminine has an opportunity to really step onto the healing path as a healer, as a leader, as a divine guide, standing firm and rooted in her beliefs, in her philosophical and spiritual beliefs as that star, as that healing archetype. So with that being said, for the intro, we're going to dig into first the Venus trine Chiron transit. I'm going to put that up on the screen for you to see. We're going to dissect that culminating transit, and then we're going to flip the scale and we're going to go deeper into the Mars opposite Chiron culminating transit, and then we will go one step further and we will dig in with the cards and see how all of this energy could potentially play out in the collective today. Okay, so let's break down the Venus and Leo trine, Chiron and Aries. And so this is what I see clearly is a culminating point of divine feminine healing. And so at this culmination point, Venus is sitting at 26 degrees 12 in Leo in the 12th house. And we also have Chiron and Aries at the same degree, but it is sitting in the 8th house. And so the 4th, 8th, and 12th house placements, these houses open up a deep axis of ancestral healing. For the feminine right now, there is a karmic release. And at the same time, simultaneously, there is a spiritual rebirth. The 12th and the 8th houses together, they represent these hidden wounds, shared collective trauma, soul contracts, and with Venus and Chiron bringing together the alchemy of this love and this healing. And so there's a moment today in the energies that are activating these archetypal forces of the Temperance and the Justice card for the feminine. And so there is a balancing of these karmic scales, and there's also a blending of the opposites into that higher harmony. And so there is an underlying Hierophant and star signature here in the astrology, which for me today is saying the remembrance of ancient spiritual truths connected to the Hierophant, and then the hopeful rebirth into this higher version of love and unity connected to the star. And so for the feminine's healing journey, as we approach this final eclipse portal, the Divine Feminine Collective is kind of in this transit where there's a highlight of a soul level choice. How do we reinterpret our past wounds? Because the 12th house Venus energy is asking the Divine Feminine to surrender all of the old illusions of love that were rooted in sacrifice, rooted in martyrdom, and rooted in betrayal. And with the 8th house Chiron energy kind of bringing up all of this old pain around intimacy and trust and shared resources and loss. And so together this trine is kind of softening the healing journey and is offering the feminine a chance to change the story of what has happened to us in order to reframe it to what has happened through us. And so the feminine opens up the portal to this greater compassion, empathy, and forgiveness, both for herself and for others. And so there's a shift in perspective here, where the feminine creates the container of peace that allows joy to enter the present moment rather than being lost to all of these old cycles of regret or resentment. And so this really is a major turning point in the Divine Feminine's path of this ancestral healing. But this is through the Divine Feminine's willingness to hold the space, because she becomes the bridge, right? When the feminine rewrites the narrative for herself and her lineage, she also rewrites the narrative for the collective. And so let's talk about the supporting aspects and the messages that came through, because the first supporting aspect that I really want to point out is Venus in a square to Uranus in Gemini, which is retrograde. And so there is a 9th house Taurus overlay of energy here. And this aspect does stir tension. Squares are always going to stir up tension. And I feel this tension is connected to past cycles with distorted masculine archetypes. And so the Magician reversed, manipulation and trickery, and the Knight of Wands reversed is the inconsistency. It's the player energy. And Uranus kind of comes to shake the foundations of these old stories, offering a break from this negative repetitive pattern. And so there is an invitation for the Divine Feminine to ground in a new philosophy and a higher masculine archetype of the Emperor and the World. And that does represent stability. The Emperor and the World represents mastery and the completion of these old cycles. And so there's a preparation energy here for the feminine for union with a divine masculine who has truly healed. The second supporting aspect we're going to talk about is Venus in a quincunx to Saturn in Pisces, and Saturn in Pisces is in the 7th house. And so here lies this energy where the feminine kind of stands at the crossroads and consciously chooses the higher path. Saturn in Pisces really is calling for that discernment in love and a karmic rebalancing. There is a truth-speaking energy here, and there's a realignment with this igniting visionary spark, which is basically calling the feminine to embody her authentic power and to release all of these old karmic relationships, to let them fall away as truth and integrity kind of become non-negotiable. The third supporting aspect I want to talk about is the separating sextile between Venus and Mars. This sextile culminated yesterday, and so there is a moment here of divergence where the feminine has offered her healing energy. But as Venus moves away from Mars, there's a sense that the opportunity for reconciliation is fading. And so the separation energy here is mirroring the letting go of the distorted masculine dynamics that were unwilling or unable to meet the divine feminine at her healed frequency. And so this does create the space for alignment of a higher union, but only with a masculine who has done the inner work. And so for the feminine in the energies today, there is a balancing of the karmic scales. There is a blending healing with truth. There is a remembering of ancient wisdom. There's a stepping into hope and renewal. And there is a visionary choice making here. Truth speaking, self-empowerment, completion of these old cycles, mastery of the karmic lessons, and preparation for divine union. And so the collective divine feminine is being shown how to move from empathy and where to withhold empathy when needed, how to embody her creation, and to release reaction. And so shifting her power, right, from reaction to creation. And so although trines are a softer energy, it's not a soft, fleeting sweetness kind of energy. It is a culmination point of karmic release and karmic rebirth. And so the feminine is being asked to hold the container for the ancestral healing by changing her lens of perception, by choosing compassion, self-forgiveness, and truth over these repetition of the old wounds. And so every choice here is asking us to meet life with empathy, to meet life with higher awareness, to plant the seeds for the new reality that the feminine is creating, co-creating. And so for me, the message here is clear. The divine feminine is no longer just healing herself. She's healing her lineage. And this is the preparation we need to go to or go through in order for a new union to be birthed that does reflect wholeness, truth, and divine alignment. So now that we've dissected the divine feminine archetype, the divine feminine energy, we're going to pull up the chart of the divine masculine energy in opposition to Chiron, and we're going to talk about that next. Okay, so now let's take a look at the mirrored counterpart to the Venus-Chiron trine. And so where the feminine was asked to create the container for healing and forgiveness, the masculine is kind of sitting in this Mars opposite Chiron culmination, where the masculine is being forced to face the raw, unhealed wound head on. So I'm going to break it down. So we've got Mars at this culminating degree, the same as the feminine at 26 degrees 12. And so there is a mirror aspect to these energies. The masculine is being asked to confront these wounds. And so because Mars sits directly opposite to Chiron, we are talking about the 12th and the 6th house axis. And there's a little bit of 8th house energy I want to say here at play. And so there is the echo of the same degree as the divine feminine's Venus-Chiron trine, but the pulling energy in the opposite direction. Instead of the soft integration, this is raw confrontation. And so here, Mars is carrying this Page of Wands reversed flavor. It's fiery, it's impulsive, it's immature, and it's often unwilling to grow, right? It's very childlike. The energy feels like a tantruming child from the masculine, very loud, very reactive, unwilling to surrender, and definitely unwilling to take accountability. We see the mirror of the 12th house placement. And so this is emphasizing denial, escapism, self-undoing. This really is where the masculine, instead of mastering his wounds, he's lashing out, he's manipulating, he's self-sabotaging, all in an effort to maintain an illusion of control. And so the core wounding themes for the masculine collective, this opposition, I want to say, is shining a very harsh light on all of the untreated pain and all of this misaligned power. So the divine masculine may be either overvaluing or undervaluing his worth. And there's like this swinging pendulum energy between arrogance and self-loathing. And so the masculines in the collective that use manipulation, control, or dominance to mask their vulnerability, there's exposure with the struggle too, I want to say, with addictions or compulsive behaviors, whether it be alcohol, drugs, sex, food, exercise, shopping, hoarding, all of these attempts to fill the void, right? And so what I see here is the masculine very well could be stuck in a dead-end relationship, refusing to walk away out of fear of loss or abandonment. But there's definitely a cycle here being activated of blame, shame, and denial, where the masculine believes he lacks the resources to really step into power and to create change. And so this really is creating a war within himself, where a lot of the masculines will project this inner battle of their own inner demons, and they will project it onto relationships or onto authority figures, or especially onto the divine feminine who shines the light on this shadow. And because we're talking about the 6th versus the 12th house, the 12th house does represent illusions. It represents escape. It represents the house of self-undoing and the house of spirituality. The 6th house represents our daily discipline, our healing practices, and the reality of this embodied change. And so for the divine masculine, this really looks like a very heavy struggle today between denial versus accountability. When one chooses the path of self-avoidance, they do choose the path of self-destruction. There is also the choice, though, to choose responsibility and healing. And so this feels like an unavoidable crossroads moment for the divine masculine. So let's break down these supporting aspects and archetypes, because we also see Mars in that separating sextile to Venus. But we're talking about 9th house Cancer energy here. And here I see the world reversed with the 2 of Wands. And so the masculine could, I'll emphasize could, break the cycle. But instead, I feel there's a tendency to keep repeating the old lessons, the old cycles. And the 9th house is really suggesting a lot of distorted beliefs or philosophies about love and worthiness that keep him looping. The second aspect we're going to talk about is Mars in the sextile to the anti-vertex sitting in the 2nd house. The anti-vertex is shadow work connected to fated soul contracts. And the shadow of the Tower and the 5 of Cups is arising here, triggering core issues of self-worth. These are all resurfacing. And so this is triggering fear of loss for the masculine and fear of failure, which actually keeps him locked and loaded in cycles of grief. And so the anti-vertex is indicating a karmic opportunity to transform his relationship with value and self-love. But with the Mars square Pluto retrograde energy building, culminating next week with Pluto retrograde in Aquarius in the 3rd house, this is volatile. This is the volatile aspect. This is war energy. And Mars square Pluto is like that child challenging the father. There's rebellion, there's rage, there's masculine destructive impulses here. And there is a Magician reversed, 6 of Wands reversed archetype, along with the World and the 2 of Wands. The masculine wants victory. He wants victory at all costs. But he's resisting the inner mastery, which is leading to clashes with authority and power struggles in communication and relationships. And he's basically looking like a tantruming child is what this feels like. We do see Mars here in a square to the Moon in Cancer, the Moon in Cancer in the 9th house, the same as the sextile with Venus, okay? And so another crossroads moment, right? But there's emotional immaturity here. There's impulsivity, and there is fear of change rising to the surface, where the masculine is choosing to resist the accountability and to keep projecting his wounds outwardly instead of actually processing them. We're going to talk about Mars trine vertex. We got the vertex in Gemini in the 8th house. Here lies the fated catalyst, right? The vertex is fated catalyst, fated soulmate, and there's still that archetype of the Tower and the Two of Wands combined now with the Five of Cups. The masculine could have recently had a fated destined encounter, or is happening right now, that has created the ripping away of the mask. When somebody rips the divine masculine's mask off, whether it's an event or a person, something collapses, right? And so it is the collapse of the divine masculine where he can no longer hide from himself. And so the vertex in the 8th house is really ensuring this deep transformation through some type of crisis or some type of loss. And lastly, we're going to talk about Mars in a quincunx or inconjunct pattern to Saturn in Pisces, Saturn in the 4th house. This is the ancestral wound. This is the pebble in the shoe. There's a Two of Swords, King of Wands, Two of Swords, Hermit. There's family karma here. There's generational patterns, and there's lineage trauma that really weighs heavily on the masculine. And the masculine is being asked to shine a light on his shadows with the Hermit card. This is about taking responsibility for cycles of avoidance. But this requires effort. This requires truth and courage, and qualities that the divine masculine has actually been resisting, but claiming he's been embodying. And so unlike the feminine, who is integrating and reframing her story, the masculine is being forced to confront the raw wound without any buffers of grace. And so the healing for the masculine right now is going to require him to acknowledge the denial and the ways that he actually sabotages himself. This calls him to face addictions, to face compulsions, to face these toxic cycles without justifying them, right? And we've got to move from the Page of Wands energy to the King of Wands. The masculine has to move from immaturity to mature leadership. And we do this by owning our ancestral wounds instead of projecting them outwardly. And so this is about choosing responsibility over escapism. And so this Mars Chiron opposition is the divine masculine's trial by fire, where the feminine is choosing compassion and forgiveness. The masculine is confronted with the shadow of denial, rage, and escapism, and he's basically being stripped of all of the illusions, all of the addictions, and all of that false power. And so the path forward is not going to be easy for the divine masculine, but it's definitely fated. And the trine to the vertex, I feel, is really showing that a catalytic event is going to shake the masculine awake. It's going to force him to face this truth. The masculine, though, must decide whether to remain the Page of Wands, the tantruming, stuck, hurt little child, or to evolve into the King of Wands and the Hermit, a wise leader who has transmuted his wounds and his wisdom. And so very interesting energies at play today. I feel this really is showing both sides of the union and the mirroring and the balancing that needs to be reached through each of these transits. And with that being said, let's go deeper. Let's pull in with some cards and let's see what the cards have to say next. Okay, so the decks I chose today are a little bit interesting. I was guided to use the past life energy oracle deck. I do feel there is a lot of past life energy coming up before we can reorient and really go forward on our path. And so there's karmic energy here connected to past lives. And so I do feel the past life energy deck is going to behoove us all today to pull in some messages. So we're going to start off by pulling in with that deck. I am going to use the Angel Guardian Tarot deck to pull the 9-card spread today. And we're going to get a closing message with the Crystal Angels deck by Doreen Virtue today. So I do feel there is a shift connected to prosperity, connected to abundance, connected to releasing this lack mentality. I also feel this very prominent energy of like, not only divergence, but it does feel a lot like exposure. There is a very strong energy of exposure connected to these past life themes. So let's get into it. Let's get some of these messages from the past life deck first. So we get the overworked card with the energetic realms. And so I do feel a lot of divine feminines are traversing through the energetic realms, and a lot of the masculines are out of balance because they are in what feels like this 10 of Wands energy. There is a death quality coming through for the masculine, and I do feel mastery for the feminine, mastering the suppression and where collectively and ancestrally we have been oppressed or repressed by the masculine collective, by the patriarchal archetype. And so all of the life between the lives is kind of being activated in these energies today. And the masculines are I want to say reaping what they've sown is really the energy that feels like for me today, the reaping what you've sown. Because the further I dig into the Virgo eclipse, the further I realize it is a very strong energy of what goes around comes around. And so there's a culmination point of receiving for the divine feminine, and there's a culmination point of this exposure, I want to say, of this deceit, the betrayal, the manipulation. There's that 10 of Wands energy, releasing the burdens. And I feel the feminine is actually very resourceful at this time, in a state of right thinking, using her communicative skills to ground in this higher timeline. But let's get some of these out. Enough chitter chatter from me. Let's see what the cards have to say with the past life energy oracle deck today. First card out is the physical issues. This feels like a crash and burn. This does feel like the fantasy, the illusion is crumbling. It kind of reminds me of the carriage in the Cinderella story. This speaks of physical issues, illness, accident, injury, and I do feel there's like a coming apart. So there could be a crash and burn connected to a false soul contract here. I do feel a 4 of Wands quality, but it's like it's the stripping away of the illusions. And so be careful not to rush in the energies today, because that could cause an accident, that could cause an injury. I also feel there's that energy of like nobody's coming to save you, right? I just keep hearing over and over again, crash and burn, crash and burn. And the second card out today is the addiction card. And so I really feel they really want me to focus on the reactive behaviors of the divine masculine collective right now, and the reclamation of your power, divine feminine. So there's this 4 of Wands reversed energy coming through. There's the Chariot reversed. And so the addictions, the codependencies, the spiraling, it just feels like a major spiral energy, an undoing energy, a very unhinged energy connected to the masculine at this point in time. And so the last card out, there's that overworked card. So there's the reaping what they have sown energy coming through. There's something here severely out of balance. There is the ending to these old cycles. 13 is connected to the death card. And so very heavy karmic clearing of these addictive, abusive, reactive behaviors as the feminine reclaims back her power and really is protected, I want to say, by the angels, by the angelic realms, by the spiritual realms. She's working with the archangels. She is in this state of calmness. The feminine's moved on to these calmer waters. She's in this state of peace, in this state of tranquility, more angelic energies surrounding the divine feminine coming through, joy, gratitude, intuition. You definitely have broken these cycles. There's this abundant energy all surrounding the feminine. And I just want to say, release any feelings of self-doubt, divine feminine, or any feelings of inadequacy. There is a mirror effect here connected to these ancestral patterns, these ancestral wounds. I do feel you have a crossed over loved one, or a couple crossed over loved ones, perhaps mother and father. It doesn't have to be, can be grandmother, grandfather, really spiritually around you and protecting you, divine feminine, as well as protecting you from this crash and burn energy surrounding the masculine collective. So let's go a little bit further here with the tarot. And let's get 9 cards out and let's see. So 4 of fire, 4 of swords. There's healing, meditation, going within, grounding the energy. There's a recuperation here. So although many of us are kind of stuck in this liminal space, this liminal space where we're not quite moving forward, I want to say there's contemplation about the next move coming forward. Let's get 9 of these cards out and let's see what we got today. Well, we got the Page of Earth in reversed. To the Hermit. There's that masculine archetype coming through with the Hermit and the 5 of Cups in reversed. So there is a lack of growth is really what this feels like. So the top row for me can represent recent past, or the recent exposure of what is kind of happening. There is a lot of introspection, I feel, connected to the reactive behaviors, connected to the addictions, the overindulgence, the abuse of power, especially with that out of balance energy. And there is a facing of the disappointment and the regret. There is this very prominent feeling of lack of forgiveness surrounding the Divine Masculine Collective. So I don't know if this catalytic energy or the catalytic energy happened on the 999 portal. But let's get this second row out and let's go one layer further. So the 6 of coins in reverse. So there is a lack of equanimity here in the collective. There is a lack of balance. This is not receiving what it is you're putting out there. This is also a karmic reckoning too, I feel. It's kind of like the Justice card in the Minor Arcana, and there's something hidden here coming to light with the moon on the bottom of the deck. Well, let's see what this central energy is today. The 4 of Earth. There's that withholding. There's that holding back. Another master number, 44, which I did feel connected to the feminine. I just feel you're sitting pretty. So I feel the feminine is in control of her surroundings. She's in control. She's in a state of mastery. She's harnessed the strength. It's like she's locking the door. Nobody can get in. There's this sense of protection around the divine feminine. So something about 4 years. Pentacles is time. Pentacles is year. So if there was a cycle that completed for you, divine feminine, say 6 years ago, and you've been in this state of reclaiming your power, you've been in this state of withholding your energy and only pouring into things that are for you, I just feel the feminine is sitting pretty here. She's sitting pretty on some information. I do feel there could be the generosity you've put out there coming back to you. We then get the 9 of Swords in reversed, right below that 5 of Cups, the 8 of Cups in reversed, the King of Coins. So that's divine masculine energy. What's this last card that we need to get out? And then we got the 10 of Air with a bonus card. So it is time. This is divine timing. And so there's a sense of like the Temperance card as well on this 10 of Swords. And so there is a major ending here. And with all endings do come the recovery period. I feel freedom. And there is like the walls collapsing, the walls kind of coming down here. And so the 8 of Cups reversed is clinging to the old patterns. There could be a deep sense of trying to prove empowerment. And empowerment isn't loud. Empowerment is actually very quiet. There could be a sense of holding on to an old cycle due to materialism, due to greed with the King of Earth. And so we are going into fall season. I do feel a shift around the fall equinox, which would be the day after the eclipse portal. That's also the day that Mars enters into Scorpio. And so this tense energy is building. There could be what I feel for the masculine is almost like a financial collapse. And so they're kind of portraying them as being grounded, solid, and stable. There is a going back to something or like a clinging to an old pattern here. And there it is. Yeah, it is. There's the clinging to the old pattern with the World reversed on the bottom of the deck. So the World reversed, to the Ten of Earth. That's the ancestral patterns. The Ten of Earth is legacy, and we can build that legacy one of two ways. We can build it through the energy of the archetype of the Devil card or the archetype of the Lovers. And so these old cycles of tradition and a false sense of security, they're kind of all falling away as we prepare to walk through the fall equinox. And so there feels like a lack of completion here. The negative, repetitive patterns coming through. There's that childlike Page of Wands energy, the Two of Wands. So we do see two masculines on this Two of Wands. There could be a same-sex couple here. It doesn't have to be. But it's almost like there's been somebody planning, plotting, in a childlike way. I don't know if there's like an offer coming. It doesn't really feel like that. But there is outside opinions here with the Three of Cups. I also feel a divine feminine is very much protected. There's a divine feminine here, very much celebrated in the community with a group of women, a group of friendships here. And there's a masculine here kind of, I feel, facing the consequences of his own actions here. There's like a mistake here. There's a reassessment. There's a lot of melodrama here. And there's some type of lie being exposed in these energies. And so there's been blocked communication. There is a need for an adjustment here. There is breaking free from false collaborations. And I just feel the feminine is just sitting there, sitting on something, sitting on a piece of information. So let's look at the Four of Earth a little bit deeper here. The masculine is losing sleep. They're in a deep cycle of negative thoughts, worry, sleepless nights, anxiety. They are their own worst enemy right now. And so the Four of Earth is clarified by the Four of Water or the Four of Cups, the Two of Earth, and the Ace of Fire. And so the feminine sitting on a new creative opportunity here. And so you are encouraged to hold off taking action towards that because there is a rebalancing here. And so the feminine is kind of holding back or holding onto something, keeping something tight to her chest, reprioritizing her path because she's already moved on from something. So there's like a redirection here. There is a playfulness, I want to say, connected to the feminine, where she is withholding herself from being distracted in any type of discontentment or anybody connected in a self-absorbed cycle. She's holding out for the real deal is what this feels like. The feminine is holding out for the real deal, for something that is balanced, that is going to be rooted in equality and equanimity. And so we do have a Six of Pentacles at play. She's not playing anymore. She's not going to accept anything that doesn't match her worth, that doesn't match her value. She's not going to be open to receiving any love offers from people that are just curious, that really aren't on her level. She's done with extravagance. There's a very frugal energy, it feels, connected to the divine feminine. And there is a beautiful new opportunity here. So I just feel, though, hold off on taking that action. Only listen to your own inner guidance. Definitely only listen to your own inner guidance. What is the Eight of Cups in reverse? Because this could mean having to go back to something, especially connected to the world reversed with this incomplete cycle. But there's that Judgment card. There's bad karma here. There is so much resistance to the rebirth and reflection that the masculine is here to do. It's like they don't want to look at the past. They don't want to look back at where they've caused their own sense of lack of fulfillment is what that feels like. There's addictions here. There could be illusions here. And then we get this Queen of Fire. The feminine, I feel, is just exuding her determination. She's on fire right now. And there is exposure of, I want to say, a major choice in love. So I feel this could be a couple of things here. There could be a separation going on here, all while at the same time a reconciliation happening, okay? And so there is this lack of reconciliation. There is a relationship here that is triggering a lot of unresolved emotions, and there is an ending. there is an ending. And so this ending is leading us through the pathway of transformation. And through the pathway of this transformation, we are stepping into freedom. But there is consequences for these past actions. I'm sorry, my oldest daughter just walked through the door. I'm sure you heard her come in. And so there are consequences for the choices that we make, for the actions that we take. And there's a need to be cautious right now, because there is the release of these karmic soul contracts, or these relationship cycles that play on your heartstring, that try to use your emotions against you or your past against you. And so there is a separation. This says to me no reconciliation. There is the awakening to a new higher perspective. And this tower is saying we can't rebuild this structure. You're going to have to build something new in a new direction. And so there is a stripping away of all of these illusions. There is a realization of a major life change on the horizon, and where we played the martyr, where we played the victim, because we're no longer going to be able to play the victim in circumstances that we created. And so there is a perspective shift here. And this is a message I want to say about empowerment today. So what is this 10 of air? What is this final ending? Because there's a challenge here, and I think somebody here is just so resistant to closing out an old belief cycle, an old pattern of, I want to say, trying to speed into things, trying to rush into things. And I just feel there is this blocking energy, blocking coming through very loud. Yeah, blocking these wandering Knight of Wands. And so there is the end of these overconfident, overpassionate, player type energies coming onto the path, proclaiming love, really not having anything solid to offer, proclaiming stability. And these false connections, I want to say, are falling away. And so discernment is going to be key, Divine Feminine. But you have broken away from the pattern. You have broken away from these loveless situations, from these smiling liars. And it's really time to keep building those new supportive connections, I want to say. And so you are no longer going to be playing into self-doubt. You are utilizing free will. You are breaking free from confusion. You are brilliant. You are experienced. And you're no longer going to be offering your cup of love to anybody that is not worth your time or your energy, is how I see this. And so tell me more about the world reversed. Will the masculine collective be able to close out this pattern? They will eventually. And so there is a Four of Wands union coming in. But first, the negative, repetitive pattern needs to be recognized. And so once you release these players, Divine Feminine, I want to say these players, people that are trying to play you or block your union, that's when the wish fulfillment comes in. But stop investing in these old karmic cycles, these old karmic timelines. They're not going to lead to anything abundant. So that's where the victory lies. I do feel the feminine is releasing self-doubt. She's no longer going to be struggling with self-worth. So what is the closing message here today for the collective, for these energies? What is the crystal angel message that we're going to close off with today? Rose quartz. There is a new romantic love here. This is all about love life. And so we're saying goodbye to the old. And these eclipses are washing away the old karmic timelines connected to power and control. Love is here for you, Divine Feminine. And I think you are mastering the lesson of healthy communication in relationships. And so heart-to-heart discussions. You have to be clear. You have to be assertive. You have to communicate what it is that you want. And only those that can understand you will be coming on your path. And so major life lessons are completing in these energies today. And there is deep emotional healing at play. So collectively, we are ready to move beyond these past experiences. But we do have to be willing to devote our time and our energy towards therapeutic care, to really doing the shadow work, really looking at our patterns and breaking free from the negative recurring patterns, so we can finally understand the lesson and the blessings that these lessons contain. And so a major purification and detoxification. It's really time to release all of these toxins from your life. People, places, things, addictions. And I do feel the masculine has a very heavy burden of worry that they're working on releasing. But there is a power shift in these energies today. There is a very positive power shift. And there is a flow of divine support for the twin flames, especially for the divine feminine in these energies today. So that's what I have. If you would like to go further with me with a coaching session or a reading, check out the description box below. You will find a link to my webpage. Go check it out. I offer a slew of services at different price ranges, something that can fit everybody's needs. I would love to get that booked in for you. Have a great day ahead, everyone, and I will see you all again next time.